Thank you for joining us. Before we go any further, allow me to turn this over to Mr. Simone to get us started as we branch out this evening.
Okay, so hello everybody, and it's lovely to see you again. First of all, I just want to extend apologies on behalf of John Blackwood. Unfortunately, he can't join us this evening, but in his place, I've asked Daniel to step in, and I'm sure we'll have a really good evening. Welcome again. And this evening, our topic for discussion is personal development, how and why. So in other words, how do we develop personal development and what's the point? Okay.
So let me allow me to step in just for a moment, because you are so efficient. You are a month ahead.
Oh, am I? Oh, I'm really sorry. I'd written that in my diary.
I'm sure we can come up with a lot of that too as well. But just in case anyone did see, we're talking living spiritualism.
Oh, right. Yes, I'm so sorry. Yes, it is. All right. So well, now efficient. You know what next month's is anyway. Well, a bit premature.
It started.
Okay, so that was so. Anyway, so now we're going to be discussing, living with spiritualism, and what does that mean to us, and also how do we explain it, if I remember the subject well enough. Okay, right. So is there anyone who'd like to start? Okay, so maybe nobody's. I'm not seeing a stampede of people running forward. Okay, so right. Maybe I'll start. Okay, so for me, this is something that is actually living as a spiritualist is not as difficult to me as explaining it to somebody who knows nothing. For me, it makes sense. Otherwise, I wouldn't be a spiritualist. And also, it doesn't happen overnight. It's something that I believe we acquire. To how to live as a spiritualist within the spiritualist ideal and the philosophy of spiritualism. I think that's something that takes time. I'm not giving a time limit to it, but it takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. And a lot of people believe that spiritualism is just the phenomena of spiritualism, like, the mediumship, the healing, the physical mediumship, the trance, and so on. A lot of people believe that that is spiritualism, but I believe that that's a byproduct of what we are all about. There is so much more to spiritualism for me than that. Yes, of course, I understand mediumship. I work with mediumship and I work with healing, but there's trance and so on. But what I'm trying to get across is that spiritualism has led me to those things to help me in my understanding and acceptance of those products, if you like, and so what I want us to think about is how it affects us as individuals, and we're going to be different. I hope we're going to be different, but also for me, explaining it is tough, because when we explain it to people, they don't have the history, they don't have the background, they don't even have the sensitivity to feel the energy of the spirit in most cases at that time. And one of the things I've had to accept, and it hasn't come easily for me, is that I'm not going to, first of all, I don't believe that I need to prove myself to anybody. That's something I don't do. And I don't prove my understanding to anyone as well. That's not what I set out to do. A lot of people believe that my job as a medium is to prove that we survive physical death. And I think that if you believe that that's my job, then you're mad, because that's something that doesn't make sense to me, because believe it or not, one day you're going to find out the truth, which is that you survive physical death. So why am I going to be wasting all my years trying to prove that fact? But what I believe my work is about helping people to understand that there is a power that's outside of them that they can tap into to help them cope with life. That I see as my job. And to help them with their sensitivity as well, because I come across a lot of people who are so sensitive, to be blunt, that they can't be of much earthly use because they become trapped by their sensitivity. But when we have to explain it, And, you know, when somebody says, oh, you know, somebody will come up to me and say, oh, I understand that you're a spiritualist. What does that mean? You know, and then I talk to them a little bit about it, try not to say too much. And then they say, you see, yeah, but you see, I can't believe what you believe, because do you know what? I like to think. And actually, that's when I want to stick my finger in their eye, because, you know, they think that I have reached my conclusions or where I'm at today just because I believe everything that comes to me. If only people knew how skeptical I was for so long, you know, before I would accept this as truth, because I was an atheist. I was a staunch atheist as well. So there was no way that I was just going to say, oh, yeah, well, I'll go along with that, you know, because I was so anti-religion of every sort. And now, you know, I'm not. But what I know that explaining it can be really, really difficult sometimes, not to give to people too much or too little information as to what we do. And I find even today, for instance, you know, when even like my neighbours have, I saw some of my neighbours recently, and one of them said to me, Simone, what is it you do? You know, they knew something because they knew I was always going away before the pandemic. And for the first time, I actually said I work as a medium, because I knew them well enough. And what I was pleased about was that they accepted it, and they just asked me a couple of questions, but not too long. But the whole event that we were at was not dominated by me talking about what I do, which is what happens. I don't know about anybody else, if you found that, you know, somebody asks you, and then the whole evening, if you're out somewhere, the whole evening is dominated by what your occupation is or what you believe in, which is not why I'm there. You know, believe it or not, I actually like to have a break from what I do now and again. I don't want to be working every minute of every day. So I think that the personal development to me is so personal, just so personal, because, you know, I believe that personal development is actually the reason why we're on this planet, you know, in this way, because it's all about, you know, learning from everything, learning from what we do wrong to everything we do right, and then becoming better people, hopefully better people. And that's what we're striving to be. But we can only, and certainly within spiritualism, we can only help others when we understand ourselves. And that's a big one for me, because so many people rush into trying to give readings and trying to do things when they don't know who they are, and they don't understand their strengths, and they don't understand their weaknesses. And by doing that, they go in and then they find that it turns around and bites them, because somebody somewhere will press a button if you haven't dealt with your issues. And that's when it goes wrong. Okay, so anyone else like to have a few words, please?
Yeah, I do like that, what you brought up in regards to a lot about not thinking, because for whatever reason, there are many thoughts that us as spiritualists, whether you identify or not, just simply those of us who engage in mediumship in whatever form, that we're not thinkers, that we are entirely controlled by an entity, if you will, outside of understanding, and we simply become, for lack of a better word, a slave to whatever comes forward. And quite to the contrary, being and living this way is more about seeking the facts. You know, that's one thing I'm often about, and it is something that has changed over time. Before, that was very much living this way. I come from a different religious upbringing where you could not question. You have to accept what was given and what was told. So to be now in the space of seeking the answers for myself, not seeking the answers for anybody else, the more fact finding for myself, really changes a lot. And that's something I think many of us may not be fully aware of. Where are we seeking these answers? And is that something that's part of your daily living? Do you seek it, or do you simply accept things without question and become apathetic because it's just the way it's supposed to be, rather than stand and say, Let me learn to respond to this situation rather than react by being silent or quiet. Anyone can relate to that? What's that like for you? Like now? What's that like? Yes, Ricky, you're all able to unmute yourself, just so you know. I think it was Ricky I saw first.
Yeah, for me, spiritualism is really very much like Simone have expressed. I was born into a Jewish background, and of course, you accept whatever it is. You can ask questions, but pretty much the Bible is there, and you got to follow it within this. You can anyway. I've had a rabbi who called me over. He opened this big book when I just began. He was hearing that I'm doing these things, he says. And he invited me, and he opened this big, huge book, and he read it. He read me the sentence. He says, you see, look there, he says, magician and blah, blah. So I closed the book and I said, Rabbi, if God wants to, if I'm going to be burned in hell, then I'll be burned in hell for helping people, and I'm okay with that. And that was the end of the conversation. So for me, spiritualism is really finding the truth within the moment and the steps that we are walking. We're always going to face challenges in our life. We're always going to have difficult moments and joyful moments, but how we are present at those moments that will make a difference. So when I look at my reaction, even this morning, and as I'm building this new website, and there's so many issues, I know that I would have reacted so differently even yesterday than what I reacted today. But the beauty was that I acknowledged that. I said, wow, Ricky, you have made steps. In the past, I wouldn't have even acknowledged that. So I think for me, this is spiritualism, is to really to see the other person, to see his challenges with developing this website, and not to say, I want it this way, but to be able to see the other person, the other people, the other situation, and to be in their shoes, be able to come out of the shoes and to see it's all okay. When the website will be ready, it's all okay. And it helps me to take a deep breath and look at things from a very, very different perspective. But I wanted to ask Simone, when you walk into that place, which I am experiencing, and people want to, are you just in a casual dinner? People want to say, tell me about medium. How do you see the dead?
Yeah.
So I always have a hard time, because you want to educate, but it's my time.
Yeah, totally get you.
So
Totally understand.
what is the best reaction?
Normally, if I'm perfectly honest, when people say to me, so what is it you do? I say, I work with metaphysics. Now, 90% of the people I talk to have not got a clue what that means, and it shuts them up from asking any more questions. That's what I do, okay? Because there's a place and a time, I believe, or a time and a place, that where it's appropriate. And when I'm out having a drink with friends, I don't class that as an appropriate time. I don't think that it's got to be in a religious setting or anything like that. But I'm not working at that moment, but again, like you, there's that part of you that wants to educate, But I always say to them, look, if you really want to know what I do, give me a ring and I'll give them my number. It's as simple as that, and then I'll talk to you about it at another time. But otherwise, it's like your whole evening is all about what you do and what you believe. And nobody else, gets to say, and the whole tone changes, and that's what I don't like, And also what I found too is if you have the misfortune to have to go into hospital, and I've always signed, my hospital paper with, when it comes to religion, I always put spiritualist, because that's what I am. But you have a price to pay for that too, because when you come out of your anesthetic, you're often surrounded by a lot of nurses and doctors who start asking you questions like, how many children am I going to have? And am I going to move? And when am I going to get my next job? And so on, which makes you very cynical, And, and anyway, there's a lot more stories like that, but just like answer it, it's very difficult because you've got to find that balance really between your spiritual life and your material life, and that's what life is all about for me. Okay, anybody else?
That's interesting that you present yourself in that way. I state that I'm a spiritualist healer, and I find that the reaction is quite different. For me, what usually happens, they quickly go to religion and imagine that I'm a man of the cloth, and then they say, "Oh, forgive me if I've misspoken in front of you. I didn't mean to say that way." And it's again, it's just so different. So I'm just curious for others, do you identify as a professional medium, a spiritualist healer, a spiritualist? How did that come forward for you? Lawrence, I saw your hand earlier. Did you want to come in?
Hi, just backtracking a little bit, but really interesting point you just said there, Daniel. To me, something that's been said tonight in this very room and is always said about seeking the truth. One thing with spiritualism with me, once you have got that cinching evidence of eternal and the continuation of life, it's the value and importance of this life it brings to you. But when we are so inclusive, yet we are each and every one of us on our own separate pathways, and when we talk about the truth, if during the day I were to look out of my window and see a blue sky with the sun shining, and say Wenny looked out of her window and saw us overcast and gloomy, which one of us is telling the truth? We all are, but we are speaking our truth. And this is one of the beauties I find in spiritualism, that we are encouraged and allowed to discover our own truths with things. And we have so much access to brilliant, brilliant, brilliant mentors. And we can go as far as we like. But very quickly with you, Daniel, I run a spiritualist church. And when I say that, people suddenly sort of, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to swear or anything." And I'm thinking, love, if you heard what I said, you would probably burst into flames. I am doing my bit at this time. It does not make me any higher, any lower, or any different to anybody else, because each and every one of us is doing what we're meant to be doing, and we understand that with the collective consciousness and the energy aspect of what we do. Each and every one of us creates a ripple. That ripple goes out and out and out and touches others and creates others and creates others. And it's that knowledge and understanding of going, okay, today I've just done a little thing, but it's not a little thing. It's a great big thing in the metaphysical world, because it's going on. And it's working in other areas, and it's producing its own harmonics. So being a spiritualist, I find it incredibly liberating. I love what you said, Simone, about basically I don't need other people's validation. That took me quite a while to understand, because once that confidence, your own self-awareness comes in, you suddenly do realize that actually, whatever people say, I know I'm right for me at this time. Tomorrow it'll be different. Absolutely. Yesterday it was different again. But I'm more than happy being me for now, and I'm quite happy to discuss that. It's when debate gets replaced by diatribe, that's when I go, okay, that's fine. So thank you.
No, thank you. I enjoyed that, and I also and still do. I mean, I think that there's no end to discovery and experimentation and exploration. I just find there's no end to that. And I've always said that and I hope to God I don't, but if I did have a gravestone, I've always believed that I would like the words, "But what if," on mine, because that's what I said all the way through this. I've never taken anything for granted. I've never just accepted anything. Maybe it's just a problem I have, but without you know, exploring it and seeing the bigger picture that I can find, you know. And also some things do not resonate with me, and they will never will. I know that. And it may be because I'm not ready for them, or maybe it's because I have different views. But the one thing I love about spiritualism is it acknowledges the individual. And to me, that's what's important in spiritualism, is that we are all different and we have different experiences. But the one thing we can all be sure about is, apart from those people who've been born into spiritualist families, but the rest of us have had to find out this knowledge and truth, if you like, the hard way. It hasn't, I don't think this comes easy to any of us, you know, and the fact that we've been awoken to this information, I find that quite fulfilling, you know, that I was ready for it at the time. I mean, it was a nightmare of a time, I've got to be honest, you know, when it sort of happened to me, when things started to happen and I thought I was absolutely losing my mind. I was so glad, and a very good friend of mine said to me, you need to see a medium, and this will tell you how many years ago it was. And I said, well, where do you find one of those? Because you'll never get one in the yellow pages, you know, but because that's how it was in those days, you know. And that's what sort of started me off. And I actually set out, my aim in the beginning was to disprove or discredit spiritualism. You know, that's why I'm here today. You know, that's how it started for me.
You brought up about our gravestones. And I think, if anything, if we walk away today with what would we want on our gravestone, is a great start to look at how am I living? And the catchphrase of yours reminding me of my own, which sometimes can bring frustration to people, because they will ask me a question. And what I often say is, well, it depends.
Oh, right.
And they get very, but why would it depend? It should usually be consistent. But again, well, it depends.
Yeah.
Who's involved, what's taking place, where am I at that moment in time? Because nowhere in any means am I perfect. I stopped striving for perfection. That took some time. But again, it depends. And I like that you brought this up. It's almost something I want to work on for myself. What's going to be on my gravestone? In a non-morbid way.
Oh, absolutely. June. No, absolutely.
June. What do you got, June?
Where is she? Yeah, June.
Point. I'm not going to have a gravestone, so it's all right.
No, I'm not going to really. I really am not going to have a gravestone either.
Living with spiritualism for me at this point in time means that I and no one else are not condemned to hellfire and damnation forever. I was brought up to believe that, and that I was a sinner. So in uncovering through personal exploration of who I am, that I am not condemned to hellfire and damnation, I'm very grateful.
Okay.
And I would share that with anybody.
Yeah,
but very few people know that I am a medium, because I like philosophy and I try to live by the precepts of it. But like we say, it's an ongoing personal development, which is your next subject. But living with spiritualism means that the progression is now, and that for me is important, uncovering who I am and living with who I am. It doesn't have to do with eternity or infinity. It's as I am now. And that's important. And I am not condemned to hellfire and damnation.
No, that's interesting. Thank you very much. Yeah. Just coming back to what Ricky said, you know, when you're with your upbringing, Ricky, you know, as coming from a Jewish family, you know, well, my mum was a Jew and my father was Presbyterian. And it was agreed between them that my sister and I would not have any religious indoctrination whatsoever, that we had to find our own. And I always blessed my parents for that, not much more, but I do bless them for that, you know. But it led me straight to atheism, you know. And as an atheist, I can assure you, because I was an atheist for quite a long time, and as an atheist, I can assure you, life was a lot easier. A lot easier. You know, you didn't have to think about tomorrow. You didn't have to think about anything to do with the way you thought, and that your thoughts were powerful, and you didn't have to think about, you know, the responsibility you had for anything. You know, it was so much easier being an atheist and believing that there was no such thing as life after death, you know. And that's when my life changed completely, and my thinking completely. So what does everybody else think about being a spiritualist and how you manage it?
Simply laughing about being atheist and not have to worry about anything. That sounds so much simpler.
It is. It was great, you know, because, you know, I didn't have to worry about what if there was a God who was looking down on me or judging me, you know, or not that I believe that now, but I did then. You know, that's what people came across as believing in, you know, where I lived.
Yes.
And I thought, no, I don't have to believe that. So I didn't worry about anything really, you know, just live for today, and that was it. Not about consequences. That was the point, you know. So I've got a big wake-up call.
Yes.
I can actually tell you, I won't go into detail, but I do remember the actual moment when I thought that my thoughts belong to me, and it doesn't matter what I think, they have no place in this world. You know, they're completely incidental, and that's how wrong I was. You know? And now I can look back and think, oh my God, did I really think that? But I know I did. You know, doesn't matter what you think. You know, you can think what you like. Well, of course, we know better, you know. So then we come to the subject of personal development, and that is personal, is so subjective. But I think every one of us, and I think, you know, especially, you know, when we've opened our minds to this knowledge and truth that we survive physical death and all the responsibilities that go with that, then we start to think about, I think it brings us to the point where we start to examine ourselves as to how we relate to other people. You know, very often I come across people who become, again, very, very sensitive because they become what I call a bit precious, without going into too much detail. And I try to get them to see how somebody else feels, what's going on with somebody else, to help them to understand themselves and understand the responses they have to people. Because, you know, we're, you know, 99% I think of the world is born selfish, but as we go through life, we hopefully end up to be less selfish and more compassionate. And once we can open our minds with that sensitivity to our compassion and our empathy for people, then it changes us. That's the point. You know, then we start to care. Then we start to have more of a place in the scheme of things. And then we can be seen, not as a personal example, but as examples of how society can change. You know, I believe more and more people today are more aware of themselves now than they've ever been. And I even think, even through these last couple of years with this pandemic, people have started to understand their sensitivity more and to recognize what matters in life. We've read it, we've seen it over and over again over the last couple of years. And that has to be in balance. It has to be a good thing, because once we see how important it is to live what we teach, that's the point. We're not hypocrites. And that's something I can't do with, is hypocrites. You know, so I think the personal development, you know, we all have our own issues, we all have problems, we can all go to various therapists and so on. But at the end of the day, we have to take responsibility for ourselves and say, okay, I'm not perfect, nowhere near perfect, but I'm trying my best. And that's all we can be seen for, trying our best. And for me, that's important that, you know, we become, you know, because I believe that when we work with a power, when we work with a spirit, when we allow that power to touch us, then it brings out the best in us. It brings out that compassion, that care, that tolerance, that patience, and all those wonderful qualities. But if it doesn't, then we have failed God's work. And that's what I believe. There's no point knowing all of this and still acting like it doesn't matter. That's even worse to me, when we know that how we should behave, but we don't. That's worse than ignorance. Because there, you know, we know who we should be. We know what we should try and help where we can, but not to the point where we're trying to earn a ticket to heaven, so that, you know, I'm going to help X number of people a day so I can get my ticket to heaven. It's got to be because we want to help, not because we feel we're going to get some reward at the end of it. You know, I know that the Spirit world tells me, may have something to do with my relationship with them, but they say to me, you know, don't look to us to giving you a certificate or a badge when you come to the spirit world. You know, we didn't ask you to do all that. That was down to you. You know, we don't do it, you know, to give you a present or a reward. You do it because you want to, not because you feel you have to. And that's the difference, you know. And I think a lot of people think that there is this bartering system with the spirit world, like, if I work for you, then you will look after me. And I believe in natural spiritual law, which means to me in that instance that if they're going to look after me, then they have to look after every single individual in this world, because I'm part of that great whole. So why would they separate me from everybody else? So I know that a lot of people feel guilty because they're not doing as much work with the spirit world that they feel they should. You know, I'm talking about if they're not doing enough healing or readings or whatever. But it isn't about quantity, is it? It's about quality. It's about helping somebody in the moment when there is that need and you're free and you're available. That's what that's about. But not to end up with this guilt trip where, oh, I haven't done enough for the spirit world and I'm feeling really guilty. They're not going to look at you like that. You know, I know the number of times I've sat in a room where there's no windows and I've sat there for days doing readings. The spirit world would laugh at me. I know they would. They say, we didn't ask you to do that. We asked you to live your life to the full. Didn't ask you to sit in a room where you weren't seeing anybody apart from the people that you were working with on a one-to-one. I know that. And I know the difference because I'm sure you do. You know, when you're in that power and you feel that, you know, that consciousness, that collective consciousness come close to you, and that gives you a greater sense of belonging. And that to me is what I try and show people that they can achieve, is that greater sense of belonging. Because so many people in our world are so alone. And they need something to hold on to. They need that feeling that there's a bigger world out there on both sides, and to feel that they've got people who are interested in them is so important. So knowing that you have your loved ones there, and not just knowing, but that you can feel them, you can sense them, and you can understand them. Not saying you can listen to them every minute of every day. I don't think that's right. But just the feeling of it, the touch of them is what matters. And that's what I hope we can show the world that doesn't get it, that doesn't understand that. Because it isn't about fortune telling. It's not about messages. It's not about telling us what to do with every minute of our day. It's not about that. It's about living, enjoying, not enduring life. So how about you? How do you feel?
I love that you brought up what you said about living. It's in our very title, Living Spiritualism. Many of us forget that living spiritualism means living in this physical world here and now. And I know many people who do not provide readings, do not do fortune telling, do not do what we define as spiritualist healing mediumship. And sometimes they feel then that they're not a spiritualist, or that they're not living a spiritualist way of life. And for me, for me, in on there are times that, like you said, it's the quality. We can simply hear the inspiration of slow down and ask them, how are they right now? And we take a moment and we turn to this person and we say, do you care to tell me how you're feeling right now? And that could change the world for them in that moment. And that right there is how we're living. We're living with this, we're living with spiritualism, we're living with each other and connecting. I find that very striking.
I have a friend, a very, very good friend who lives in Australia. And we've been friends for quite a few years now. And she's been to the Arthur College and she's done a lot of mediumship training over the years. But she worked really, really hard to be an intensive care nurse in a hospital, you know, where she's working with surgeons. And she has, you know, academically, she's pulled herself, you know, inside out and upside down to get her qualifications. And she messaged me the other week and she said to me, Simone, I want to do more spiritually. I want to do something else spiritually. And I could hear myself scream at her. Please remember, she's an Australian, I'm in the UK. But I could hear myself from the inside scream at her, and I was actually typing in capital letters, which I never ever do, because I was so cross with her, because I was saying, what can you not understand about what you're doing? Of course it's spiritual. It's helping humankind. You probably do more spiritually than I'll do in a whole lifetime. You know, when you think about all her work is based on helping people, helping them to not suffer in any way whatsoever. That's her job. And she looks at me that I'm more spiritual. Come on. You know, so she got the message anyway. She did have a good laugh at the end of the day. She must have been a weak moment for her. But I think people misunderstand the word spiritual by thinking that it's got to be, you know, mediumship or no, I actually don't like the word spiritual. I've got to be honest, because to me it conjures up this feeling of me, you know, walking through a cloud of talcum powder with a benign smile on my face, but being totally ineffectual, you know. That's what the word spiritual does to me, and I'm sorry if that offends anybody, but it does that to me. And for me, it's about just being down to earth and being normal, and whatever normal is, my brand of normal anyway, and helping where you can and caring. I care. That's what being spiritual is for me. So does anybody else have an idea what's, oh yeah, Lawrence, how about you?
Please tell me to shut up. It won't be the first time, and that's absolutely fine.
No, I wouldn't dream of telling you to shut up. Nobody else is talking.
But Lawrence, do you have your talcum powder to spray before you walk in?
Well, actually, I was just a little bit disappointed there with Simone's description of spiritual, because you forgot the bells on my sandals.
Oh no, I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I did. I forgot the bells. Yeah.
I think something I particularly cleaving to in this post-COVID time, because we've had this huge pause and it's allowed people to actually reevaluate where we are, what we're doing, why we're doing it and things. One of the energies I'm very keen and actively very much working with is redefining the term of mediumship and saying, you know, everybody is a medium. And no matter what it is, it's in the inspiration. It could be through the arts, it could be through caregiving, because it's all coming through that inspiration, that little gentle nudge from the spirit, the thing about, oh, I should phone up and so. This is all different ways of expressing our mediumship. And I'm very keen to get that over to people, because I think sometimes the semantics of our language do, like the word spiritual, conjures up this image. And obviously in our movement, the minute you say medium, immediately you're thinking, no disrespect, I've got your mother here, da 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 da. But mediumship is just being that bridge between us and the spirit world, to bring in so much into our world. Your friend in Australia, fine example. You know, to sit down and study and to really work yourself really, really hard to be with somebody at probably one of the worst days of their life.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree with you more.
When you look at that from an external focus without any emotional attachment, you just think, oh, no thanks. But there's that inner drive, there's that inner urge, that inner fire that needs feeding and controlling. So yeah, I think we've got to just work much more on just getting over to everybody that we meet. And it is difficult, I agree, in conversations, because people always want the end point, they want the goal of it. And it's saying to people about, it's not about the goal, because this path doesn't have an end, but it's the journey that we're all on is where we're doing the learning. And just getting that understanding over. I'll shut up now, and I promise I won't put my hand up ever again.
No, please do. No, please do. No, really do mean that. Please do. No, it's been very interesting. Thank you. You know, has anyone else got anything they want to add about, you know, personal development or how you explain spiritualism to anyone? Nobody. Okay. So. Yeah, Tim, thanks. Yeah, thank you.
I'll rescue you.
Thank you.
All of us, in whatever religion, has a tipping point. And you come to understand something, whatever it is. Now, in our terms, in my terms, it's a matter of believing that you're an eternal being. And once you believe that, you have to work out why you're here. And the simplest way of describing it is a pilgrimage into the physical. And you're on a road, you're on a journey, and this pilgrimage is taking you on the journey, whether it's to Canterbury or Damascus or wherever. And along that road, you will be meeting people. You may help them, you may upset them, whatever. But the point is, you're learning on that journey. You're part of that journey. So it's really about you. It's a personal journey. Yes, you can influence people. Yes, you might help people, might not help people, but that's not the point. The point is the personal journey. So for me, the mantra, the gravestone, whatever, would be good enough. And that's it, good enough. I'm not trying to achieve any more than that, but if I get an opportunity to help, I'll help. And when people ask me what I don't say medium, I say healer, and that's it.
Yeah.
And the irony of that is I'm not a healer. I'm a channel for healing. And that's something that I keep to myself. But as far as the description goes, I'm a healer. And that's sort of accepted. They don't try to question that. They accept that. That's a positive thing that anybody can understand and be part of. But even so, I'm still step by step moving along this journey, taking this pilgrimage into the physical. Because I accept I'm not physical, I'm spiritual. I'm a spirit.
Yeah.
I think that's the realization, that's the understanding. If that makes any sort of sense at all.
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah.
Really individual. We've all got to find our journey, our route, our road.
Yeah. And we've all got to be prepared to change as well.
Yeah, well, that goes with the landscape. If you're on a road, it'll change step by step. You know? There are puddles in the road, there are flat roads, and there are dirt roads, and there are dusty bits, and there are uphill bits and downhill bits and round the corner bits. You know, it's a road, it's a journey.
Okay.
That's normal, you just accept that. And what you're given is the pleasure of that journey. Or the hardship of that journey. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, because that's what was going through my mind at that moment. What, you know, why some people have to have such dreadful lives, you know, and it's not self-inflicted. They just have to, you know, they just happen to have really awful lives, and that's something that I've struggled with.
Well, so do I. But you accept that that's the journey. That's what's been agreed. That's what's needed for whatever reason, and I can't explain that. I don't know why.
No.
You know, why people on a Christmas fair get run down by an insane person in a big red SUV. I don't know why. But it's somewhere in there. There's a reason for that journey, and I don't try and analyze it. I don't.
No.
It's not my journey. I am, you know, affected by it. Of course I am. I'm affected by seeing images from mobile phones of that event. That's part of the journey.
Wow.
It's part of the landscape, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
But we keep moving.
Yeah.
Whatever else, we're moving targets, aren't we?
Hope so. Hope so.
Moving target. There's your end point. We're all moving targets.
And all we can aspire to is be good enough.
Yes, that's it. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. So I'm just going back to our original subject for tonight is about spiritualism, you know, and about how to live as a spiritualist, and how spiritualism, I think, affects us. Because I know that's been times when, you know, maybe my immediate response has been one thing, and then I've taken a moment to really think, and then I've changed my mind. And I think one of the things that, you know, we learn the hard way, but I hope we do learn, is how sometimes the immediate response that we have is not always the best response. You know, even with helping people, you know, our immediate response might be to jump in with both feet, but maybe those people don't need us right at that moment, you know, and we come in like firefighters, you know, trying to sort everything out, you know, Mr. Fixer and Mrs. Fixer, you know, and maybe we just need to just take a moment for those people to decide what help they would like, rather than we take over or jump in, you know. So I think that, for me, that's what part of what spiritualism has helped me see, is to appreciate other people's opinions, other people's space, if you like, other people's time, and not to feel that I've got to go and help everybody as I used to. You know, how about you? You know, what's spiritualism helped you with? Or has it not helped you? I'd be interested to hear that if it hasn't.
Yes, Bonnie.
Oh.
No, she was only just adjusting her camera.
I got you, Bonnie.
Don't move.
Well, you know, as you talk, everything to me is about our essence, is finding our true essence. And everything we see, all the experiences around us, shape our essence of who we are. And it's a very supportive community to help us be more forgiving, more loving, more caring people. And so spiritualism has helped me heal in so many ways.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a very healing way of experiencing life as well. Very helpful.
Great. Okay. Thank you for that. Very interesting. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes. Alexandra.
Oh, there's so many different things. What I'd like to say now is, for me, essence doesn't change. Our experiences and everything else doesn't change our essence. It is our essence that guides us through these experiences. And our essence as spirit is what guides us to the experiences that we need to learn from in order to go forward. And with that standpoint, my journey has been that when I go out into the world, whether to work or I always pray before I enter the world, guide me to say, to do, to be that which will bless anyone I encounter in my day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get asked, you know, where if someone by chance or conversation hears about mediumship or the spiritual work I've done in other areas, I right away, as they start questioning, right away as they're talking within myself, I am saying, give me the words that they need hear. Give me the words that will open their heart and their soul to the next understanding of life as it is, and life as it can unfold for them. And
can I just ask you, do you mind if I
yes.
ask you a question?
No, go ahead.
It just interests me. Why do you think, this is not meant to be any kind of confrontation, please don't misunderstand, I'm just genuinely interested. Why do you think you need help with that you haven't got the words, the right words for that individual yourself?
I don't see it as a help in the sense of a failing or a lack. I see it as tuning into my highest self.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
And
I
therefore
thought
asking.
I thought you were asking. I thought you were asking an outside power to help you, not an internal.
No. Everything
then I
is done
understand you.
from
Then I'm
understanding.
sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
then I
that's
misunderstood
why,
you.
That's okay. That's why, like, this idea that there is no truth. Everyone has their own truth. That's one thing that always trips me up in conversation. Like I pull back because I come from a different background, and even in my background as a musician, as an actor, as a writer, as a sports person, as a dancer, everything, we learn that there are certain principles that if you learn them and take them on as a guiding point, it will save you years of trying to find them out for yourself in the first place. So every teacher that you have, the reason that you take them on is because you trust that if you listen to their experience and try it from that direction, it will save you figuring it out for yourself. You know, even at the piano, you know, if someone tells you hold your hand like this and press the keys in this way, it will go much faster than you trying to plunk it out. So to me, like even this example that was given of the weather, it's not that there is no truth of weather, that it's true for one person that it's cloudy and it's true, that's their truth. No, that's their experience of the weather. The truth is weather changes on this planet. That's the essential truth. So there is always a principle in every area of life. And if we learn to find the principles, and our principle of being is that we are one with the source, in my understanding and my training, that we are one with the source. That's the ground of, that's the starting point. That's the position from which to view every experience. So for me, if somebody comes and asks a question, like I'm on the subway, I'm in New York City, and I'm on the subway, and suddenly somebody turns and asks some kind of metaphysical question out of the blue, they just suddenly feel, I gotta ask somebody, and you're next to me, so I'm gonna ask you. So I see that, well, they've been placed in my path. There is no coincidence. That's why right away I said, oh my God, like, why now? Why this person? What today? I want to know. I won't say, well, here's my phone number, why don't you call me? You know, I'll gladly talk to you about it, but not, this is not the right environment. I see it, they might die in 5 minutes. Maybe as they're getting off the subway, they get hit by a car. But if I had told them the answer or whatever I could offer to open their view of, you know, it all depends on the question, but
yes, of course,
every opportunity is one to give a seed of truth, a seed of knowing, a seed of our spirit essence, to connect with that, so that person will feel it, like, oh, you know, like there is more. I don't know why I feel there is more, but something touched my soul in this encounter. And so they'll go off going like, what was that? And how can I get it? What could, you know, it starts to widen the scope of their journey.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. That's very interesting. Thank you very much, Alexandra. Carolyn.
Thank you.
Yes, Alexandra, thank you for saying that. I have a friend who every morning says to God, you know, show me where to go, show me what to, show me where to be, show me what to say. And she's a very wise soul, this lady. She's in her 90s, and she's had a heck of a history. And I think it's lovely, because what you're really doing is you're sort of saying to God, kind of like, guide me. And I think it does open a door. I don't like labels. I don't like the label of medium. I don't like the label, particularly of spiritualism, because I find they're too, in a way, restricted. And if you say you're a spiritualist, people go, ooh, ah, you know, as you said, you know, can you see my granny? And for me, spiritualism is so much more than that. For me, it's the philosophy, it's the healing. Yeah, for me, having come into spiritualism very much through a back door, very much full of resistance, resisting all the way, questioning all the way. But for me, it has enriched my life. Do I go around saying I'm a spiritualist? No, absolutely not. And I also don't very much go to churches, actually. And that doesn't do much for my soul, particularly. But I love the philosophy, the healing. Healing is my love. I actually was an intensive care nurse in Sydney, Australia. And
well, that's where she is. That's where she is, in Sydney.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I was there for a couple of years, and there were times that I wish I'd known about spiritualism at that time, because one patient once said to me, am I dying? And I was only 24, and I couldn't cope, because she was, and I couldn't cope with the questions. I went and got somebody who was older and wiser. But had I had the experience, maybe, or knowing a bit more, it would have been helpful for me. But no, I think to ask God each morning, you know, show me where to go, show me what to do, show me what to say. I think that's wonderful. And I really encourage that, because it's, you know, we never know the difference that we can make with one or two words. We can make an impact, and we don't have to label ourselves as a medium to make an impact. We can just simply be who we are. And certainly for me, coming into spiritualism, for me, it's helped I believe it's really been a source of helping my soul develop and to get to be a little bit smarter in my life. Still have lots of long way to go, but
haven't we all? Haven't we all? Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else like to share some thoughts at all? I have to confess, I did find, you know, what you were saying, Carolyn and Alexandra, I found very interesting. But there is a part of me, and I'm sorry if it sounds controversial, that I believe in personal responsibility. So therefore, I'm not going to look to God to tell me, you know, that to ask for guidance, when that part, I believe that power, I'm part of that power, and it already resides within me. So it's like, I can understand why we sometimes need to challenge ourselves. That's a different story. But to ask that power to guide me and give me the words for somebody else, when maybe it's my responsibility to find those words for somebody else. I just want to leave that with you. I'm not saying I've got any answers. It was just what came into my mind, you know. So, but thankfully we're all different. And that's what I love about this. We're not brainwashed. We're not told how to think, you know. And I know the number of times I have to deal with that, you know, students will say to me, oh yeah, you know, but the SNU does this and the SNU tells you that. I said, they do not control my logic, my sense, or my reason. I think for myself, you know, and that's what we've got to do. We've got to be thinking people, you know, we've got to be able to use, you know, our minds in a much more purposeful way, and you know, and not be just blindly led into anything, you know. And that's why I'm a spiritualist, because it allows me to think for myself. And it doesn't mean for 1 minute that I think I'm right, not at all, you know, but it does mean I can think for myself, rather than being indoctrinated by a religion where I'm not allowed to think for myself. And I know both my parents felt that they were the religions that they had, you know. So, and they didn't want that for us. But I think if everybody's okay, I think we've got a few people just left. So I think we've gone past our time, okay, for this evening. But I want to say, you know, thank you to you all for your very, very, very valuable contributions. You've really been amazing. Thank you. And it's not an easy subject, I don't think. Not at all. And it's not going to be easy next time either. So because we're going to be looking at personal development. So I do hope you join us, and John will be with us next time, and I'm hoping Daniel will still be here with us next time as well. And thank you very much indeed for your very valuable contributions this evening. And I hope you have a good night. Thanks again. Okay,
everyone.
Thank you. Thanks again, Daniel. Thank you.
Of course.